Okay, good morning, everybody. Bill Lester here with University of Florida Extension Service in Hernando County. And joining me today is my regular co-host, Lily Browning, and sometimes host. Last week I was off on vacation, and Lily was kind enough to keep everything going for the week in my absence. So good morning, Lily. How you doing?
Good morning, Bill. I'm doing great. And it was 2 weeks that I filled in for you.
It
Just,
was, yeah. I mean,
yes.
gosh, I got a long vacation from this, didn't I?
Well, I think the week before, yeah, you were involved in another teaching opportunity. And then last week you were playing in your RV in the mountains. So,
Yes, off on proper vacation north of here. I told my wife, I said, if you want to go somewhere cooler, we're going to have to head north because if we head south, it's only going to be hotter.
that's right. Have
And
more
it was still
mosquitoes.
pretty warm. We were in the mountains of North Georgia and it was beautiful, but it was still warm. So it was definitely it got very pleasant at night.
Oh, yeah. July. It's got to be warm
Yeah,
anywhere. Yeah. hmm Looked
it
like
was
you had a
beautiful.
beautiful mountain view. And you told me that you accidentally drove your RV through Helen, Georgia. Something about going to Helen back. What was that?
Yes, if you ever, for anybody who's familiar with North Georgia, if you drive through the little town of Helen, it is in the mountains. And you will get to drive up the side of one mountain, and it's something or other pass, I think. There is a name for it. And it's the highest point in Georgia. And you will drive up one side and then down the back side, which I'm not used to. I'm used to driving in Florida, and it's flat. I mean, the biggest mountain here is what? Brooksville and Mount Dora and things
Actually,
like
yeah, I
that.
was going to say where the garden. What's the name of the garden there? Uh, in Polk County.
Oh,
Clock
oh, yeah.
Tower.
Clock Tower. That's it.
Yeah, yes. So you got to drive your new RV down a scary mountain, and you live to tell the tale. So
It was great. It was exciting. It was a white knuckle drive. I'd do it again now that I've experienced it the first time.
yes, we did fine in your absence. I think the first week we had Jim Mull from Pasco County, so he's really smart dude. Taught me everything I know. um, Answered a lot of great questions, and then last week, oh, we had Alice Smith. That's right,
Hmm.
our your master gardener volunteer, who is quickly becoming an expert at native plants. So we had basically a theme last week, totally concentrating on native plants. Had a lot of viewers. Morning, buddy. And it went very well. I think they had a lot of good questions about native plants, and I think we were able to help them and answer them. And we had pretty pictures of Alice's yard, which I was supposed to go see this week, but she doesn't want me to come see a swamp, so we might be putting it off.
Yeah, it has been a little wet recently.
Yes, she said she has some cleanup to do, but I'm excited to go see it.
Well, that's great. I'm so glad to hear that there's so many more people interested in native plants.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you could be interested in adding them to your landscape for a number of different reasons. Of course, they're very insect and pollinator and butterfly friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they add to the environment and local ecosystem. The reason why I like them so much is because they tend to be basically zero maintenance. Plant them, once they get established, you don't need to monkey with them or do a whole lot to them. Trim them up and clean them up in the spring so that they look good.
Still
Other
have to
than that,
weed.
it's not high maintenance.
You still have to weed.
Hmm.
I'm trying to have. It's mostly a wildflower garden because my intent in the beginning was a fully native, and then you get impatient. So when the natives weren't coming quick enough, there might be a couple non-native blooming plants in there, but they're all pollinator attracting plants. And good morning, Austin. He joined us last week as well. Um, What I learned in a presentation I put together yesterday, notice this plug, it's on my Facebook page. It's also on Hernando County Government YouTube already, called Pretty Plants That Beat the Heat. And I broke the plants up into, first I talked about 7 or 8 native plants. Then I went into non-native, Florida-friendly perennials, and then Florida-friendly annuals. But what I noticed down the line is the further you get away from natives, now some of the perennials, zinnias, pentas, they're going to attract your pollinators. But the further you got away from native, every single native is going to attract pollinators, birds, bees, butterflies.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other, a few of the non-natives, well, like the blue sages or the Mexican sages, they're going to attract bumblebees galore. But the further we got away, the less wildlife value these plants had. They were really just pretty. Other than some of them provide hiding places, like caladiums are great places for lizards to hide and play. And what I explained to them was a lot of these annuals and even some of the non-native perennials, in order to make them more successful and not so much of a pain that we have to worry about this disease or this insect or whatever, so they have worked on the plants and hybridized them. But our hybridization process has outpaced evolution. We've hybridized these plants way faster than any insect can evolve with the process, so therefore they don't recognize the highly hybridized plants as plants.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, they have less wildlife value. So I wasn't saying don't use them, but maybe use them in moderation as pops of color, and let's really use the plants that's going to bring our pollinators. So.
Yeah, and it also comes down to how you manage your landscape. A lot of times the way we manage things and the way we breed plants are for different aspects that we may like. For example, yesterday I had to go to the YMCA, the Suncoast YMCA on Mariner and Spring Hill, and they are working on putting in a community garden there. They got some grant money for that, and they asked me to come by to give them some ideas on plants and kind of help them get on track. I noticed out in front of the building, all the plant material they had there, all of it was tight boxwoods and other hedge bushes, and all of them trimmed to be square, trimmed to be round, and ligustrums have to be like a big mushroom, and the other ones. And the lady in charge was telling me that it's very high maintenance. If they don't keep them trimmed, people walk in like, what's wrong with the bushes out front? They need to be trimmed. They look out of control. I said, so, and I noticed that a lot of other more traditional landscape subdivision houses have the same type of plant material. So you have to have either you or your service has to come in and trim those things constantly. You spend money on fertilizer to throw on them, spend a lot of money on irrigation, and complain when you can't water more than once a week to water them, to make them grow. As soon as they grow and get a few sprouts, you cut them off, you put them in a plastic bag, you put them out by the curb. You expect Carmen Bruno up at the landfill to pay to have the big trucks come by and pick all that stuff up. That's super high maintenance. That's very expensive, very wasteful. And to find a lower input landscape, something that takes a lot less time and energy to put into it to keep it looking good, is a very good thing. That's what I shoot for in my yard. Because you know what? You know what I'm never going to get to? What I rarely get to? Trimming the bushes.
I'm
not going to be out there trimming stuff.
I do if they get overly big, but not to topiary them. That's not
people topiary them. They topiary oak trees. Folks, don't do that to oak trees or elm trees. It is horrible from a plant health standpoint. If you have an oak tree and it's a little oak tree and it's growing and sending out branches, if you go out there and trim it in a big ball, every branch that you cut will send out, and I've counted them before, 10 little shoots from the end of that branch.
It's a stress reaction. Yeah.
Your tree gets really dense on the edge. Light will never penetrate the center, so all the leaves in the center are going to fall. It's always going to be bare in the middle, and eventually, what I see with all the topiary type ligustrums and boxwoods and other hedges, they eventually start to get big dead spots on them. And you know what you could do to fix that? Nothing. Sorry, guys. It's because that plant is so stressed and so abused that it's not going to recover. There is no bug problem with it. Usually, a lot of times it might be a fungal disease problem because you trim it and now it's so thick, air can't get in. Water, fresh air can't get in, sunlight can't get in. It's really dense inside, and you will greatly shorten the life of your either oak tree, bush, or whatever you're doing that to.
One final pruning cut at that point, huh?
Yes, the final pruning cut at ground level. So leave topiaries to Disney because they can do it really well. They have an unlimited budget. They have 1 million people that work there. They have all the time and money in the world to make them look perfect.
And they're also building those. If you look behind, we saw. You weren't with me then. I think you've been there before, though. I saw some of the magic uncovered in some of the gardens. That's built on chicken wire, and it's not. They're not actually making the plant really shaped like that. So.
Yeah, doing that to plants is very, very unhealthy for the plant. It really stresses the plant out, makes it a lot more susceptible to diseases, insect problems. Can get either you're putting in a lot of time and effort and sweat and work, or you're paying somebody else to, and they're charging you, so it can get very expensive. And it really does shorten the lifespan of the plant.
I was in a fast food drive-through the other day looking at their, trying to think like, what is it they're trying to accomplish here? Because they weren't even like matching or anything, but each little podocarpus was just like in this rectangle. It's like, I think that's just what they think the people want. It makes it look managed, maybe.
Some people think that if you just go out there and hack away on everything, that's what you're supposed to do. Because you see your neighbors doing it, and the HOA.
Well, and the way they're doing it, yeah, and they're using a chainsaw to do it in those shapes quickly. So.
Yeah, so if you find yourself out there,
shears, yeah.
Yeah, every weekend, either you or your lawn service hacking away at stuff in your yard, you're doing something wrong.
Yep.
We do have a question here, though. Carol Ann, good morning. How are you? Says her Ixora bushes are loaded with blooms this year. I've resisted the urge to trim. Leave them alone too?
Leave them alone till they're done blooming, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, leave them alone till they're done blooming. Ixoras, people plant them here in Hernando County. Technically, we're a little bit far north. They can suffer a lot of freeze damage in the winter, depending on how cold it gets. But I know Carol Ann is a bit south of here. I think she lives in Pinellas County.
Could be, yeah, I think so.
So Ixoras should be absolutely fine to grow there. Sure, leave them alone and let them keep flowering and enjoy the flowers until it quits in the fall or the end of summer. And what I aim to do with everything from Ixoras to Hibiscus to a Firebush to all those other flowering individual bushes, I try to trim them just once a year in March, get them cleaned up, cut back, all ready to go in the spring, and then I leave them alone.
How much do you trim?
I'll trim back by as much as 1/3, depending on how much it's grown, how much room it has, how contained I have to keep it. I do have a hibiscus stuffed in a kind of small area by the front door. I didn't plant it. It came with the house.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to cut it back quite a bit. Otherwise, before the end of summer, it overfills the area allotted and starts to spill. And even then, I don't let that bother me. If it's flowering and looks good, that's great.
As long as you can get in the door, right?
Sure, as long as it's not blocking the front door too much.
But I think the key you hit on is you don't remove more than 1/3. You might remove 1/3, but you don't want to take it down to half or almost nothing. They're not rose bushes. You know, you don't want to. You don't. It's very stressful on any plant to remove more than a third at a time.
It
And
is, and
you're
you
glad.
may have to. Let's say if you have a firebush and it's frozen back all the way down to ankle high during the winter, you may have to trim all that dead stuff off and cut it way, way back, but it's going to grow right back in the spring.
Yeah.
So ideally, you don't want to take off more than about a third or so.
Speaking of fire bushes, I planted some last year. They froze when they're little, and they've come back. Got one pretty nice sized one, and I'm looking, like when are the hummingbirds going to find my fire bush? Got a report yesterday from the newly retired person in my house that there were two hummingbirds on that plant, you know, during the day when I'm not there to see it. So at least I know it's doing its job. And he said there was a teeny tiny one out front where I have a bunch of sage and stuff. I didn't ask or argue. It could have been possibly a moth instead of a hummingbird. But still excited that the pollinators are coming and kind of sad that I'm not there to see them.
Well, once the hummingbirds find it, they know it's there and they'll never leave. So you might have to be patient until they find it the first time.
Right.
But after that, you should have a couple of them hanging around.
Yeah. And I'll have to just, as soon as I get home, go and sit out there and just wait when the hummingbird's coming.
Okay, here's one for you, Lily. Monica asks, is there a trick to growing the sunshine mimosa as a real ground cover? She keeps babying hers, and it is not growing like crazy like people always said it does. She lives in South Tampa. So sunshine mimosa as a ground cover.
You know what? I had the exact same question.
Oh,
the exact same issue that's in that garden, you know, that I've added extra plants because I can't get the sunshine mimosa. It's happier now that it's been raining, and it's been there less than a year. So maybe someday it'll become as aggressive as people say it is. I think it depends on your site conditions. I know your master gardeners are not on good terms with the sunshine mimosa, native or not, because it takes over some of the beds that it had been put in at the master gardener nursery demonstration area. So they told me, as if somehow, you know, I created the plant, they told me they're not using it anymore. I don't know, because I'm not having that, you know, great luck either. One thing I did learn, and we do have a native plant expert who does in this county, I've seen her lawn multiple times. She uses it as a lawn. So she was successful with it. What I learned the hard way is it's got to put out those tendrils and attach to something. And I put it in a bed with mulch, with big, bulky pine bark mulch. So that finally dawned on me, it wants pretty much bare dirt to begin to attach to. So I didn't remove the entire mulch from the bed. I just keep scraping it away and kind of building it up around the edges where I see the sunshine mimosa growing and trying to take hold. So that could be an issue. If you have mulch, have it be like very, very like fines, or even just let the sunshine mimosa go on the bare sand. Otherwise, you know, we can keep each other updated as to how well our sunshine mimosa is doing. It's like any other plant, though. Sometimes it just says, I don't like this area that much. So, you know.
And sometimes these things just take a while to establish before they really take off. Because the fact sheet that I just went ahead and shared, and I guess Teresa must be on here also, because she shared the exact same link.
No, that happens when you share. You look like you're two people.
Oh, okay. That's how it sends it to YouTube and Facebook. Okay. See, I learned something today. Hopefully most everyone can see that.
When I share, I look like I'm you.
It says the powder puff mimosa is an effective ground cover because it spreads very quickly. One Once it gets established, it has a pretty deep root system, so it helps to control erosion. It does die back in the winter, so it dies back and disappears for a few months during the winter, but don't worry, as long as it's established and doing well, it'll come back. Can be grown in full sun or partial shade. So if it's very, very shady, it's not going to do as well. We do have it at the Master Gardener Nursery, and it's in a pretty sunny spot. And it's intermixed with the turf grass. And it even says on here that it works well with turf. It intermingles well with turf.
And I have also noticed when it does bloom, the blooms are like brown. I mean, I'm not getting very many pink powder puffs, so I'm going to have to keep an eye on that too.
Just take some time, probably. If it's a sunny spot, and as long as your soil isn't like incredibly alkaline or incredibly acidic, as long as you don't have anything really unusual going on with your soil, eventually over time, it'll spread and take over.
Yeah, it is spreading. It's just slow. And I think my fatal error was putting the mulch down with it.
Yeah, that's going to block it. That's not really good. Okay, guys, anybody else has any questions, please go ahead and ask.
You have one. There we go.
Here we go. Hi, Lily and Bill. I've got to replant the landscape at a villa in an HOA that is maintained by a service. Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good. I don't know if this is going to work out well or not. Most of the area is a foundation planting. Any suggestions? The area gets both sun and shade, faces east, so it gets that early day sun and not the hot western side of your house afternoon sun.
Well, the first suggestion is check with the HOA what you're allowed to do, because you don't want to, spend time, effort, money, and then say, take it out. We don't allow that. Now, if you're looking for more foundation plantings, I don't know if he wants to replace it, or he or she, or what, they're looking for. Dwarf Yopon hollies are great native hollies that maintain naturally the round meatball shape. That might be, a good suggestion to put in there. Probably don't.
If you're looking for a small flowering shrub, there's a huge number of choices. All depends on how large you want them to eventually get, or what's the maximum height that you could tolerate them getting to. So you could put in hibiscus. Thrialis is a great plant that's underused.
No, it grows really quickly, though.
Loves full sun, flowers close to year round. For a couple months during the winter, it doesn't flower. But other than that, it gets yellow flowers. No pests, no diseases, very tough. And there's a lot of other flowering type plants that you could put in.
It depends on, the Thrialis is going to get tall and big. If you're looking for shorter, like I said, go for that dwarf Yopon holly. Firecracker plant is a non-native but Florida friendly that will have these little red tubular flowers all over it all the time. And once you get it established, I've never seen cold bother it. They use it in a lot of commercial, parking lots, things like that. It might be a little, it's very commonly used, but it's because it's fairly low maintenance. Muley grass is what a lot of, it's a native that a lot of HOAs make use of. Coontie, that'd be a great thing to put there too.
Coonties are great. They're very slow growing. There's zero maintenance. Over the years, they will spread. Looks like a palm, but it's really a cycad.
Yeah.
I like salvias myself. We do have the red tropical salvia, but we also have very, very dark blue ones that almost look black. So you have a variety of colors. There's one that's kind of red and white. I think it's firecracker salvia, something like that. There's some name for it. If you're looking for salvias, I went ahead and put the address to our Master Gardener Nursery there. if you want to look at some plants and get some ideas, or feel free to stop by our office here, because all of our planting beds out front are now done with nothing but native plants. And they look really, really good. And we have little signs on them. And you can come by and actually, if you see something like, oh, that looks great, you can get the name. We have little QR codes on the sign. So you can click on that with your phone. You can get more information about it. So there's a lot more options than what most landscape companies unfortunately offer. And if you go to a big box store, they have very, very pretty plants. They look really good, but they may or may not be things that are going to do well here. And a lot of times they don't do well for long. You can get things that look great.
Yeah.
They look great for a month, and then after that, they kind of crash and burn.
I talked about that. I talked about how yesterday in my class, how we go to the store and we pick what is pretty. And, we look for more than what's pretty in a life partner. So in a landscape partner that's going to be with us hopefully for a long time, we should also be looking for more than what is just pretty. And Carol Ann, I answered your question. I look like Bill answering your question, but about the yellow plant is Phryallis. I wrote it out there. It's also called golden showers, isn't that? Something like that.
I've never heard that.
Flowers of gold, something like that, yes.
Here, I'm looking up a good fact sheet for it. Here we go. Yeah, and this is one of my favorite plants. Really.
The Phryallis?
Yeah.
I had some in when I lived in downtown Brooksville. Everything I had there grew bigger, faster than, the struggle I have up in the northwest sand dunes of Hernando County. When I lived in the Oak Hammock, threw stuff on the ground and it grew, sometimes literally. But that's Phryallis. I actually got a little tired of having to prune it as often as I did. So, but it was beautiful. I had it right up against the house and it was always getting the eaves. And, it got wide too. So our little walkway was becoming narrower and narrower.
I had some in an area in the backyard that was not turf. It was kind of on a hill. This was in Deltona. And I cleared the area out and put in a number of Firebush and Phryallis. So the red and the yellow looked good. Yeah. Phryallis had all the room in the, if it wanted to grow and spread, it could. Okay. I just cleaned it up every spring and it was good. So
I guess the moral of our story is give it space. Don't try to put it in a narrow location, which that's the whole issue. When I lived in Brooksville, I had a tiny yard, but it was so fertile. Now I have much bigger and it's much more of a struggle, but it can be done. That's the thing. My daughter is only now in her 30s getting into gardening. So, and she likes wildflowers and all that. And I keep telling her that's the thing, with gardening is you're going to keep having failures. It's just going to happen. If you're a true gardener, you're just going to keep trying it again because you can't not.
Sure, trying new things, new ideas. You learn about a new plant that you could try to incorporate, try to color coordinate and fill your yard. Yeah, and it's one of those, the maintenance and everything else, it never ends, but
right.
You get a chance to be outside, fresh air, sunshine, exercise, working off the couple extra pounds that you may get from sitting around the office, as I do.
Yes.
Or sitting online all day long, not that good for you. So helps out in all those different ways. And you see somebody, we have Colvin from South Carolina tuning in. This is great. We have nationwide reach.
We do. And every time I've been through South Carolina, it looks like they have exactly the same plants that we do. But, they're going to have freeze issues much more than we do.
Yeah, very similar, although something I noticed that when I was in North Georgia, and the closest town was Hiawassee, and it couldn't have been more than maybe 10 miles short of the North Carolina state line. We're in the mountains, and it was a wooded area, and it was beautiful hardwood forest, really, really thick forest. Like even during the day when it was sunny and hot, it was dark in the forest, and all kinds of dogwood trees growing, especially at the edges of the forested areas. And that's something that we generally don't see here in Florida. And let me kind of put the asterisk on, depends on where in Florida you are.
We used to, Bill.
I guarantee you that the people here from Broward County, Pinellas, further south in Florida than Central Florida, you have very, very few dogwoods there.
But here in Hernando County, we used to have quite a bit. Citrus County, you know, going on up Marion, they'll tell you, oh yeah, we had dogwoods. What happened to them? So what happened to them, Bill?
Well, number one, there's disease, dogwood anthracnose, which has been a huge problem further up north. I grew up in Maryland. There was dogwoods all over the place. It's been a huge problem all the way from up there down to here. And it's one of those things, we here in Hernando County are literally right on the line. And the line shifts over time, a little further north, a little further south. Sometimes you can have dogwoods here. They tend to be short-lived. Like up north, you would have a dogwood tree that your grandmother planted, and it still looks beautiful. Up there, we had a rose bush in our backyard in Maryland that had been there for 20, 30 years. They don't live that long here in Central Florida. Generally, the tea roses, the Austin roses, they don't live that long here because the diseases and the soil-borne problems will eventually do them in. So they tend to be short-lived. So dogwoods here, you see very few. My guess is just a little like Marion County and Gainesville, you probably see more dogwoods. And then further north, they're all out in the forest. They grow naturally at the edges of the wooded areas.
It's a combination of that anthracnose disease, which is nationwide, and the fact that it is getting warmer, you know, and so that line that you discussed may have moved from us to, you know, Ocala or maybe Inverness, you know, somewhere along there.
And it's a range. It isn't one hard and fast line where if you live north of there, you're going to have all beautiful dogwoods are going to live for 30 years, and below there, they all die. Redbuds are the exact same.
And see, in downtown Brooksville, it used to be, and I'm talking 10, 15 years ago and before, just you went there when you went to go see the azaleas, and dogwoods and redbuds all over the place. Just looking gorgeous. I'm sure Jade City was the same way.
And there's still some out there. It's just they're fewer. It's tougher. And we don't want to encourage people too much to try growing all those really tough to grow plants if it's tough to grow where you live. And all these things that maybe lavender and apples and things that you grew up north. And people love to ask about cherry trees on Facebook, and then someone will chirp up, well, if you grow this variety of cherry, and like, no, they don't do well. They're not going to grow here. You may end up with an attractive tree, but you're never going to get any fruit off of it. Because when you do that, it's not going to do well. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to spray a lot of water on it. You're going to throw a lot of fertilizer on it. You're going to be putting out insecticides for imaginary bugs because you assume they have bugs. You're going to be using all these resources, and it's not going to change things. It's probably still going to continue to decline and not do well.
And even where Colvin is, I'm sure they can have peach trees, and that is an issue here. We've had peach trees here in Hernando County, but really, you know, people get into, if they want to do it commercially, they know it's a short-term gig. It's not something that they're going to pass on to their grandchildren unless they are replacing the trees often. And they're making peach trees. They're developing peach trees that
we don't make them. We develop them.
Yes, that require less chilling hours. But in general, you have a peach tree here. You have a peach tree for 10 to 15 years. That's it.
Sure, and I think commercially they aim to replace them about every 10. Blueberries, same thing. And blueberries, it's shorter, maybe closer to every 5 years, they replace them.
Wow.
And a home gardener would look at them and go like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? That blueberry bush or that peach tree still looks good. And the grower would be like, no, it's starting to get disease problems. It's becoming less productive. It's declining. We're going to cut our losses and get rid of it and replace it with a new tree. And because they keep developing new varieties, there's chances are there's a new variety they're going to replace it with that's going to do even better and be even more productive. And that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's better to cut your losses and move on.
Yep. Brenda's joining us. She's late because of work. We know how you feel.
That's okay, Brenda.
I miss hummingbirds because of work. Yes.
Our weekly plant clinics are saved and recorded for your later on viewing pleasure on our Facebook page, our Facebook group, and also on my YouTube page. So no matter where you're watching this live from, it's recorded. You could go back and watch it again. And for anybody who's interested in podcasts, these are saved as podcasts also. So if you want to write down that web address, I'll leave it up there for a little bit. Anchor, ANCHOR, like an anchor on a ship, .fm/William J Lester. That's kind of long, but if you go there, you can find podcasts from not all of our episodes, but going back quite a bit.
Oh, interesting. I've never listened to a podcast. I need to get on the podcast bandwagon.
They are becoming more and more and more popular because people can multitask. So you can listen while you're doing other things. See, Brenda, you can listen to recordings of us while you're doing your job.
She's probably doing that.
Don't let your boss catch you.
Yeah, she's probably doing that while, having it up on her laptop as well. Brenda was a behind-the-scenes assistant to me in my class yesterday. I included 3 or 4 of her photographs, things that I did not have photographs of. So I went snooping through her Facebook and I did credit her and let her know, she had some things that I was looking for. So it was very helpful. I appreciate that.
See, she's multitasking.
Yes.
So we do have a question here, and this is a very interesting one from Carol Ann. Do you think that we can grow vanilla in a pot on a lanai?
That's a big old question.
I'm not really positive. I'm thinking that you probably can. Because vanilla is an orchid, believe it or not, but it's a vining orchid. And vanilla in the tropical forest where it grows naturally, it grows as a vine. It grows way up into the trees, way up in the trees. It flowers. It's just these long, think of like a really long pole bean pod. And then when the pod matures and turns brown, you take it and cut it open and you scrape the stuff out of it. And that is pure vanilla. That is what we're shooting for making our vanilla ice cream, one of my favorites. Now, you can grow vanilla in Florida. University of Florida researchers are just now starting to look at different varieties of it. And nobody's ever done much research or breeding with vanilla. So they're thinking, we found like 100 varieties of vanilla. We're going to try growing them all. Or these are going to grow great. These are going to grow not really well in Florida. So we kind of, mark them out. We're going to figure out which ones grow the best here. We're going to try cross-pollinating them. We find some that grow really well. We're going to recommend those to growers, and they're going to start growing them commercially here in Florida. I know who the researcher is that's working on this, and I'm probably going to invite him to do a class really soon. So Carol Ann, keep tuned in, and let me go ahead and go back to exactly where you can go to find our upcoming classes, at hernandoextension.com. Keep checking that, and I will have the researcher on to talk about vanilla because I want to try that. Now,
we'll celebrate that class with some vanilla ice cream while we're watching.
Yeah, we could do that. That's a great idea. So We'll have to make it interactive and make sure everybody is eating vanilla ice cream while you're watching the class. So get everybody in the vanilla frame of mind.
I jumped ahead. What I was laughing at is the chat that came on right after Brenda's said she was multitasking there.
Yeah, I saw that. Nora is listening while doing other things. So I'm not sure how closely she's listening to this.
Nora Kramer is otherwise known as Mrs. Lester.
Yes, think of her as Mrs. Dr. Bill.
No, we will not do that.
So yes, we will have a vanilla class really soon. That's been on my list of different things that UF is looking at as possible new crops. Now here in Central Florida, we're right on the line of where vanilla could grow without freezing in the winter and dying. So Carol Ann, you're a little bit further south. You have a better chance of being able to grow it successfully. And if you have an appropriate size container that's going to hold the roots and help the vine to grow happy and healthy and tall, you probably could grow it in a container. I was wondering, could I grow vanilla in a container and have it run or wrap up a palm tree? And I'm going to have to ask that question in the class, because if I can, I'm going to order some and I'm going to try it.
All right. Buddy, it might be a bit difficult in Tallahassee.
But you know what? If you're creative enough, you can give it a shot and probably figure out a way to do it. Kind of where there's a will, there's a way.
Sure.
So
Microclimate in a area like where your house kind of shields some of the frost.
It is a tropical orchid. So yeah, buddy, you'd have to do manual pollination, and that helps with a lot of different plants. Even if you're growing squash, to go out there and hand pollinate it helps. Up north, if you had a greenhouse or a sunroom inside, a place that doesn't freeze where you could grow it, you can grow that vine and grow it long and wrap it around the room and just keep running the vine around until it reaches a length where it's going to flower and set vanilla pods. So in theory, you could definitely try. And if you put enough effort into it, you'll probably be successful at it too. The prices that they're getting for vanilla, like real vanilla pods, is amazing now. And growers are always looking for new niche markets, things that they can grow here in Florida to help stretch the season, make some extra money, hedge their bets. You know, if you grow nothing but 1,000 acres of citrus, if you have a problem with citrus, you invested everything in it. So diversification is always a good idea.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, I'll put that on my list of things to do. I'll contact him and try to make that the next class.
Okay. Lee's talking about their mango tree.
Yes, Lee is in South Florida in Broward County. I had to help teach a Zoom class the other day on, I told you about this, I had to teach on lychee trees and longans,
Yes.
which are Asian tropical and subtropical fruit trees. They grow them a lot. You can grow them really well down there in Miami and Homestead. And Lee was on there also. So
Okay.
taking advantage of all of our classes. But Lee lives in Broward County, and he's trying to grow his vanilla orchid in a pot going on a mango tree. So far it's okay, but slow growing. So like I said, they are working on identifying and naming different varieties. And then the key is you just try growing all of them, see which ones grow the best, which ones don't grow as well, see what you could do to help some grow better, see which ones taste the best, don't taste very good. It all takes work. And University of Florida has researchers that do that work. And the nice thing about having classes online is if I ask them nicely, they'll give me an hour to come on and teach a class.
Okay. So with all this food talk, what do you feel about this trending craze, I guess you want to call it, what we were hearing a lot about food forests. What is your take on that?
Food forests are very popular right now. I guess you could say trendy. And I remember there are a couple different Facebook groups for food forests. I know there's one for Central Florida, and then there's a number of different Facebook groups out there that deal with food forests. And I've joined a number of them. Everybody loves the idea of a food forest. And they could picture themselves out there. My property's filled with food forest, and I'm picking cherries, and I'm picking apples, and I'm picking this, I'm picking lychees and longans, and that's great. That's what we want people to do. I just caution everybody, it takes planning, and you have to do the boring stuff. You have to read a lot and attend classes. And if you're thinking about growing apples, you need to look a little bit deeper into that and do some research, and you're going to find out here in Hernando County, it's not worth it. Apple trees at best are going to make a fairly attractive tree in your yard. It's really hard to get apples out of them. Decent apples, big apples like you get at the grocery store.
Yeah, those Anna
You can,
apples,
but it doesn't happen very often.
those Anna apples, people say I'll just use those. Those are Israeli apples, and they're thinking Israel as in heat. But think of Israel as in
heat.
desert, yes, which we are not. We get an awful lot of rain, so.
And they get hit really hard late in the summer with all this heat, humidity, and rain. They get fungal diseases. The leaves fall off. You're going to have to spray a lot of fungicide on them. But if you do your legwork and your research, you watch a lot of our classes, you come here on the virtual plant clinic and ask specific questions. Once you get them, you'll narrow things down to what's going to do well right where you live. Because Buddy up there in the Panhandle is going to grow very different things than what we grow here in Hernando County, or what Lee's going to grow down in Broward County. They're all very different. Buddy can probably grow apples up there. My guess is probably. He's going to do better than I would here in Hernando County.
Mm-hmm.
I can grow peaches and blackberries. I can now grow greening tolerant citrus. There's a lot of stuff I can grow here in Hernando County. And I tell you what, if I lived in Lee's yard down there in Broward County, I would have a stuff full of mangoes, lychees, and longans, because I would take advantage of that. I'm going to try some of them here, but I know it's kind of a gamble. I may lose them. If we have a devastating freeze and I don't make it out there to cover them, that's going to be a problem. So, but I know I'm kind of pushing the limits, and it's an experiment. And if it works, I get lychees and longans. If it doesn't, I tried and had fun.
Yeah, that's my only caution. Like you said, if it is your passion and you really want to go for it, then do it. But you, like you said, it's not low maintenance really. Any kind of fruit trees, they need work. People tend to think I'll just put them there and just reap the benefits. No, there's pruning that needs done. There's all sorts of, you got to pick up the fruit off the ground or the rodents are going to find it. I mean, this is just the facts of life. And so if that's something you really want to do, go for it. But also think of resale value. Maybe the next person isn't that interested in it. So it also depends on how long you want to stay in your house as well. And Lee mentions here that she's female. I was concerned with that, which was
it's hard to tell online here.
I was using gender neutral pronouns. But
you can see Lee has lychees going south of here, and then Buddy, well north of here, has Anna's growing well. So you can grow apples. You just have to live in the right spot. You need to figure out what's going to grow well where you live, do the maintenance, learn, just read and study and learn what you're doing and experiment, and you'll eventually figure it out and be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So Monica posted a photo in a group page. I would like some ideas of what to plant in an area of my garden if you have time. Let me see if I can get in there.
Are you looking? Are you looking for edible plants or just ornamental plants? And speaking of,
Oh, I see.
okay,
Let me see if I can screen share this.
she wants butterflies. Okay, we can answer that. And where are you located, Monica?
Okay, it's a little small.
Yeah,
Let me knock us
South
out
Tampa.
of there. Let me knock
Okay.
the comments out. So you see the picture here, and
Can you
this
click
looks
on the
like,
picture and make it bigger? Anyway, it looks
not
shady.
really, not really. We're gonna have to kind of work with what we got here.
It looks shady, doesn't it?
See, that's not gonna do it. Nope, that's what you get.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
but I could tell you, it looks like kind of a corner of her backyard. It's very shady.
yes.
It's near a fence, a wooden privacy fence. Has a couple of everything from palm trees to little trees to random weeds.
It's going to be difficult to have a butterfly garden in an area that's not full sun. Because even the butterflies kind of like to hang out in the full sun.
And she's in South Tampa.
Yeah.
It has some sun, enough sun for society garlic, but not obviously full sun. There are different flowers and flowering bushes that you could plant back there. Things that we talked about already, like thryallis, hibiscus, firebush, but they're always going to be, the shadier it is, the leggier they're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So they won't die. It's not like they fall over dead because it's shady. And they'll grow and they'll flower, but they're not going to flower as much as they do in the full sun. And they're always going to look kind of leggy because they're stretching for the sun. But there are flowering things that you could grow. If it was me in a pretty shady area like that, I would take a hard look at ferns and gingers, and there's a huge number of gingers out there with all kinds of different shapes and color flowers, different colored and tinted foliage, and bromeliads. Bromeliads hold water, and you might start raising mosquitoes. You need to keep that in mind. But those things, ferns, gingers, and bromeliads, like that speckled kind of sun.
Yeah, it's hard to, like I said, if you want a lot of butterflies, other than the firebush that you just mentioned, hibiscus might get you some as well. Some of the maybe Asiatic jasmine as a ground cover. Trying to think. Usually butterfly gardens and full sun is what goes hand in hand. Oak leaf hydrangea doesn't attract a lot of butterflies or anything, but it does support wildlife as far as cover, and housing goes.
Something you want to look at, and you're probably going to have to grow it on some type of trellis. You might have to put an actual trellis up against the fence. There's a plant that's called Dutchman's pipe, and it does really well in the shade. It gets a big, funny-looking flower on it, but that's not the important part. It is the host plant for the pipevine swallowtail, which is a great big black and some other colors on it, swallowtail butterfly. And it grows just as well as ferns do in a shady spot like what you have. So that is one really, really good choice that attracts butterflies, feeds caterpillars, and is going to grow in the spot where you have it.
Passion vine is another one. You might not get as many flowers, but the caterpillars don't even care that much about the big purple flowers. The Gulf fritillaries and the zebra longwings, they just want to eat up the passion vine. So their caterpillars do. So that is something that could work. You can even put it on that fence if your neighbors don't mind. You share your neighbor's passion vine, right, Bill?
Yeah, I do. And they pulled most of theirs out, but it's still underneath my lawn all over the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those are a couple choices. The Dutchman's pipe should do really well. It likes it shady. And passion vine may not do really great because it's shady, but it should grow. It should grow and do well. And it's a great food source for Gulf fritillaries and zebra longwings.
And if you happen to have what a lot of people consider a weed, you might already have it naturally in your yard, low growing. It's called Matchhead Weed. It's called Fogfruit. It's called Frogfruit. It's called Turkey Tingle Frogfruit. Matchhead Weed is the most descriptive. If you have it in your lawn, you already know what I'm talking about. The little flowers, tiny little flowers, do look like matches. That, if you let it grow as a ground cover, and it doesn't care, sunshade, whatever, it attracts 3 different types of really tiny butterflies: the Phaon crescent, the buckeye, and the white peacock. And they're all like quarter-sized butterflies.
Mm-hmm.
That's something to consider as well.
And I get all 3 in my yard. And the white peacock is a bigger butterfly. And they don't come out until fall. They seem to come out. They're about the last ones to come out during the summer. But yeah, I have big patches in my yard. And it does great. Mine's in the full sun, and it grows great.
Well, there are some native nurseries, Monica, that do actually sell the frog fruit, but I bet you know someone that has it, even if you don't have any, and they'll probably be happy to let you pull some up and try and get it started.
Yeah, all you need to do is just dig up a number of just basically plugs, put them in your area. It'll spread. It's going to spread like a weed. I think mine's great. I don't have to worry about it. Don't have to care for it.
If you don't have it that much in South Tampa, then make a friend up here. We have plenty of it.
And Lee's putting it all over her yard down there south of us in Broward County, trying to replace turf. That is what mine has done. I have an area in the backyard where we let the dogs out to take care of their business. It's probably a third of the frog fruit or fog fruit, whatever you want to call it, about a third of the weed, the common Bermuda, and then a third Bahia.
Right, mine too. And in that one wildlife garden that I have, the matchhead weed, the fog fruit, is in major competition with that sunshine mimosa and is probably winning out too. And I didn't put the frog fruit there, but I let it be there because it is very beneficial.
Oh, I have no clue where mine came from. It came with the house. I'm sure it was not planted deliberately. One of those things that you get a little bit and it spreads and spreads and spreads. And then, a lot of people, there's a weed in my lawn. What do I spray to get rid of it? I don't worry about it. It's established and it's fine with me.
Yep.
Okay, we had a question about posting a picture of a plant. Sure, if you want to go ahead and post that in the Facebook group.
There we are.
Or if you'd like to email it to me directly, let me get out a screen sharing there. And show my email. If you want to send me a picture, a question, or if not today, if you want to do it tomorrow, next week, whenever, there's my email. That is by far the best way to get into contact with me. If you send us an explanation of what your problem is and lots of pictures, we can almost always help you out that way. You don't have to drive here. You don't have to, you don't even have to get out of your pajamas in the morning. You just email me and we'll figure out what it is and get it back to you.
Or I think they were wanting to show a picture of the frog fruit that they have. I'm not sure you can post a picture on this chat here. Anybody can really just Google frog fruit and you'll see it. So they send it a messenger. And when you see a picture, you'll go like, oh yeah, I've got that in my yard. I thought that was a weed. And to me, a weed is a matter of opinion, unless it's an invasive exotic that is disrupting our natural ecosystem. We purchased the lot next to us, and there was an area that there was a big, the Hernando County tends to use some of the areas by our house as a staging area for their equipment. There it is. So we had to, the area in the front that had been rutted, my son-in-law evened it out. So it was all just sand, and, no grass or anything there. That was 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, naturally filled in with some kind of green, grassy looking stuff that is perfectly fine with me. I didn't lay any sod, anything. So.
Did you know that it is also known as Texas frog fruit?
No, see?
I didn't know that either.
No.
And it might be a little hard to tell from this picture, but you see the little flowers there. These are the flowers that this low-growing plant makes prolifically. During the summer, it starts to flower really well. And it looks like the little head of a stick match, kind of.
It does. And then they have tiny little flowers poking out of it. Tiny flowers, yeah.
So there are caterpillars that use the leaves as their main food source, their main host plant. And the flowers are very, very attractive to everything. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, the
bees and pollinators and every butterfly in your neighborhood will land on them.
And the gopher tortoises, they eat it.
Yep.
So it's great to me. Who wants a monoculture of just sterile St. Augustine grass where nothing is alive in it? It is much better to have that freedom lawn or that diverse lawn area that allows life to occur within your turf grass.
Yeah, and I don't have to go out there and spray my Texas frog fruit. I don't have to fertilize it. I don't have to treat for chinch bugs or anything else.
Why does Texas get it? I mean, we have plenty of it here.
I got to cut it. Got to cut it every once in a while. My wife's going to yell at me if I don't.
Right.
But other than that, it just does just great on its own, and I can go out there and enjoy all the insect life and butterflies and everything else that's thriving on it.
I'm going to rename it Florida frog fruit.
Yeah.
Why does Texas get to have it?
Well, that's the only time I've seen that. I don't know where they got that from.
Yeah.
It has many different common names.
It does, and you can look up the Latin name, but it's not like it's hard to find. So just get some plugs of it and get it started. Everybody's was a volunteer pretty much, I think. Mine was. I don't know where it came from. Fate put it there for me.
Yeah, I mean, you could share it. So if you have some, you could dig up some plugs and give it to somebody else. They could start it. We have some growing right out in our flower beds out in front of the office here now that Alice Smith brought up here and planted deliberately, and it does great. Mm-hmm. It grows like a weed.
Because it is.
Because it's kind of a weed. That's what some people call it.
Oh, I have another thought. Who was it? Was in South Tampa, Monica? Yes. Beautyberry. You made me think of it when you mentioned weeds. American beautyberry loves the shade. That's fine in the sun as well, but it's going to at least get you some birds. I'm not quite sure about butterflies, but the purple berries will get you some nice birds there too. And those you can find in anybody that sells native plants, or you probably have some friends who have some of it growing in a wooded area. They're so easy to transplant. Pull them up and they'll do just fine. I use beautyberry all over my yard. I pulled it from the more natural areas and use it even in the formal landscape area. They look great. So.
Yeah, the berries are eaten by birds and spread far and wide. And in wooded areas, it just pops up wild.
Mm-hmm.
And in some wooded areas, kind of partly sunny, partly shady, edges of woods, you'll see a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
Great for wildlife. If you have a big enough yard where you can incorporate things, it adds some winter color, because those purple berries last through a good part of winter until the birds eat them all, and looks very, very festive, colorful.
Yep. Yeah, they are fast growers. I have quite a number of them, so I didn't actually mind. That retired person trimmed one of mine so he could walk in this area. And he said he took off a couple of branches, and I'm like a couple, but it's fine. They grow so easily.
Okay, here's the pictures that Susan sent through Messenger. And this does not look like fog fruit or frog fruit. This is some other kind of ground cover and a type of morning glory type plant, and that's a 4 o'clock flower. So this is a mixture of different things.
Mm-hmm. Morning glory also. Oh, she's just showing full shade plants.
Yeah.
Morning glory will do well in the full shade.
Yeah, so a lot of times plants are going to grow either in full sun or full shade. They're just going to do better in one than the other.
Right.
Monica says she's got no problems with matchweed, but doveweed is a serious problem with all this rain. We get a lot of questions about doveweed. It becomes, for people trying to grow a pure stand of St. Augustine or Bahia, it can become a problem. It's tough to get rid of, too.
My problem is the wild Bermuda. I hate the wild Bermuda. And I wouldn't care if it would grow in my lawn. It doesn't want to grow in my lawn. It wants to grow in my beds.
Yeah. The only control for that in your lawn is to either dig it out or spray a Roundup and resod.
Right.
There is no herbicide or weed anything that's going to kill it without killing your grass.
I throw it in the lawn and tell it to grow there, but it likes my beds better. So I'm always pulling it, wrapping it in big balls, trying to get rid of it.
There we go. See, Lee prefers Florida frog fruit.
Well, there we go.
Okay. Okay, guys. Wow. It looks like it's getting to be about that time.
It is, yeah.
Time is just flying by here today. Let me go ahead and show you Lily's email address here. If you ever like to contact her, if you have any questions or anything. And there's my email once again. Let's be sure to roll that ticker, because if you keep checking hernandoextension.com, you're going to see a listing of all of our different classes, our Thursday morning virtual plant clinic, like what you're on today. I'm going to start doing a Monday morning, just a 5 or 10 minute thing on Facebook Live as an update for the week. So everything that's going on, you can follow us on hernandoextension.com just so you don't miss anything. But if you do, the nice thing about Facebook and YouTube and all this is it's recorded. You can watch it later.
Yeah. And also on Hernando County Government YouTube. I probably got over 50 classes on there now. So if that's a rabbit hole you want to get started on, where you can choose what area of interest you have. And Bill's probably in half of them with me as well. And
I have a number of my own on there, different various classes that we've done
Right.
that John's put up there. So it's a really good resource.
Mhm.
And there's our office phone number. If you have any questions, you can call, and most likely Teresa will answer the phone and help you out. And double check the comments there. Lee, you're very welcome. Buddy, you have a great day too. And good luck growing those vanilla orchids up there. Keep us advised at how they're working.
Mhm.
You know, if you're being successful or not. And Lily, I think I'm going to be back here next Thursday. You going to be back here?
To the best of my knowledge, yes, it's usually the third Thursdays that I have that other meeting.
Okay. We will both plan on being here again next Thursday. So if you have any questions, go ahead and save them up and tune in and ask your questions and share your pictures and comment. And we'll have a great time once again. So, hey guys, with that, thank you so much for tuning in. This is really great that we have such a regular audience, nice steady group of people tuning in with us every Thursday morning. We really, really appreciate that. I can't stress that enough.
Yep. Thank you to everyone who, from whatever avenue you are listening in, whether it is StreamYard, Facebook, YouTube, however you're doing it, we appreciate it.
And whatever county you live in, whatever state you live in, it's
Yeah.
all great. If we don't know the answer, we'll find it out for you. Okay, well, thanks again, guys. Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.